Hey, welcome to the Browncast. In today's talk, we look into Beyonce's Super Bowl appearance and the crazy amount of controversy that it generated. Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going?
What's going on, guys?
Oh man, just reading up on all these headlines regarding the Super Bowl. Did you guys get a chance to watch it?
No. Yeah.
You, uh,
like watching guys' butts.
Dario,
I
what
don't like it.
Dario, what did you think about Beyonce's halftime show? Because as you can see now, it's a huge controversy, mainly with the conservative media.
You know what? Let me jump in. We're Hispanic. We're pretty much on the sidelines watching this play out. If I'm white, you better believe it. I'm gonna be upset with something like that. If I'm black, you better believe that I'm gonna be cheering that on.
But why would you be upset if you're white, though?
This is becoming an ideological battle more than anything. But we have a good vantage point as Hispanics.
But hold on, what? But I don't know why would you be upset if you were white though? Not all the whites were upset.
There's a lot of white people that are way past the divisions of racism. There's a lot of white people in this country who are not racist anymore, and yet they still get it all the time. They still get the blame, and they still get put in a box where they're the boogeyman, they're the evil man, and it's just and it's constant. And then you got this like a super diva on the biggest stage of the year, and then she's like ramming it in home.
But you make it seem like if she saluted the KKK, and I think that's the big problem with this. That what did she actually do? You know, like we have our heritage. We have the
No. You and I have had this conversation many times before, where we talk about police brutality, and I'm always trying to make the case that it's not a race issue. It's a police authority issue. It's a system issue. And when you Beyonce, in the vein that she was talking about, or the statement that she was trying to make, it was in the vein that there's only racism against black people. But I can always make the case that there's the same amount of violence being.
But that's not what she said, though.
By the police.
Let me ask you guys again. What exactly did she do wrong, though? Like, let's talk about the Black Panthers. Why aren't the Black Panthers thought about as a powerful group that stood up to defend the rights of black people? And shouldn't black people be proud of the Black Panthers? And so what's wrong with saluting a group that you're proud of during the Super Bowl? What did she really do? Because if you really objectively look at the Black Panthers, they were a resistance group that wanted to improve the lives of black people, and all she did was salute that group. Now, let's say that there's a Super Bowl and a Mexican artist comes along and he sings during the halftime show, and then he gives a salute to the Aztecs or to the Maya. Are you guys gonna be offended by that?
If you're white, I'm telling you, if you're black, you cheer that symbolism from Beyonce. If you're white, you're kind of like, you know what, we don't need this right now. But if you're Hispanic, I mean, to me, it doesn't really mean anything.
Well, hold on,
not
though.
Because it's Black Panthers, and not because it's Black Panthers, and I'm not trying to say that it's for black people, but it was something that was very specific to them.
And like you said, so what, right? If the black people are proud of the Black Panthers because of their resistance to oppression, then look at all the movies that come out every single year about all of these resistance that were mounted against the Germans during World War II. Look at all of these people that are idolized throughout history because of their resistance. And all of a sudden, Beyonce wants to salute the Black Panthers, who a lot of black people are proud of because they stood up for the rights of black people. And then she gets called out on it. And let me go back to what you said. Hold on. Let me go back to what you said earlier regarding Hispanics not having a dog in this fight. I think we do, because police brutality and the current state of heightened tensions with police and communities affects Hispanics as well. And Latinos get, and this is actually...
And we've had this conversation before.
So we do have a dog in this fight.
No, obviously.
What I want to really talk about, though, is something that Dario has been mentioning, which is, he says we're Hispanic and we're kind of in the middle, so we get to have an outside perspective. I kind of agree with that, but I do think we have a dog in this fight because police brutality affects us as well. If you're black, then hold on. If you're black, then you support what Beyonce did, because obviously you're, the Black Panthers. But if you're white, then you're against it. But why? Why should white people be offended because of what she did? All she did was call attention to a group that black people are proud of in light of what's been happening with police brutality that affects black people. So why would white people get offended by it?
You want to know why?
Why?
Because white people are not allowed to say the two words white pride.
The KKK are.
Okay,
no, they're not. They're not.
Okay, but
they're allowed. They're allowed to They're allowed to.
No, I think that Dio has a good point.
Sorry, go ahead.
Because there's such thing as white guilt. And
yeah, exactly.
Nobody wants to talk about white guilt because, and you're absolutely right. Because if you say white pride, you're looked, or if you have pride for being white, then you're looked upon as a racist.
Yeah. So that ties in perfectly with what I have, with the agreements that I have with being so specific about using the biggest stage of the year, like I said, and making a statement about blackness, and that is that a lot of white people live with this idea that we get it, we are post-racial, we are post-racism. Not everybody, obviously, but I think the vast majority of people have moved on, and here they have this event again, and it's like throwing it in their face. Yeah, throwing it in their face, once again. And so I can see how the white community would be upset by something like this because they're not doing anything to provoke this.
But if anything,
obviously,
though,
police brutality is a different issue. I mean, come on, police brutality and fucking poverty and negligence from governments, that has nothing to do with white people. This is a fucking system issue. This is a problem that encompasses everybody. And now let's bring it back to the issue of us not having a dog in this fight, specifically with the Black Panthers, because you say that we do because these issues affect us as well, and that's always been my point, that the black people have this perception that it's only them, that they're the only ones that are suffering, that are being neglected, their neighborhoods are being overlooked and run down. And it's not only black people. I mean, it's fucking Mexicans, especially in our neighborhoods.
Well, hey, but look, if you want the black people to speak up for you, then you're wrong because you're gonna have to speak up for yourself. It sounds to me like you're upset at the black people for trying to fight their cause and not including Latinos. Where are the Latinos to speak up on this and protest, right? So we can't expect the black people to include us. We have to join them. We have to join them in the protest. They have every single right to protest what's affecting them, which is police brutality. And going back to your point about white people being offended, why would they be offended if all that Beyonce is doing is protesting police brutality? White people are proud of their heritage, and they show it in different ways, and you don't consider it offensive. And we can talk about that later on. But they celebrate their heritage and their pride in their heritage all the time. And also, you have to talk about the dynamics, given the fact that the black people were enslaved for hundreds of years and the Europeans were the oppressors. And you have to talk about that dynamic when the oppressor comes around and he gloats in your face and he wants to salute or be proud of a colonialist or a racist person that oppressed people and killed thousands of people. It's psychologically, it's a lot different when a white person does it than when a black person says, hey, you know what? I'm being oppressed. I'm systemically being oppressed. But here's this group that I think resisted and I'm proud of and I'm going to salute it. Because at the end of the day, the whites still control the system. And so
not if you're white poor.
Not if you're white poor. So maybe that's where we should focus our conversation, that the fact that the poor white people, they're really the ones that are getting upset at this. Or at least if you were to maybe take a sample, you probably find that it is the poor white people, because they're the ones that feel the most left out.
Well, what's to be proud of if you're poor and if you stand up and if you I do have a problem with with dismissing white guilt, because there are sections in these United States where there are individuals who have strong ties, historical and familial ties with their culture, and specifically with specific white groups in Midwest and in the South and all over the place. they're often, if they're seen, with hunting dogs or they're raising they're building their cabins to live. I mean, we're the majority of society looks at them as Hicks, as white Hicks, and they do, and they do not have a voice, and we often we say, oh, these people are the ones that are upset because or we're calling them racist, which we don't know that. I mean, and I can tell you the people who are actually probably raising their voice, and this is this is subjective, of course. I believe are conservatives who control the media, who are saying, oh yeah, who are raising their voice, but not so much the poor white people. They don't have a microphone or the outlets to let the rest of the media or the rest of the nation know how they're feeling. You have rich conservatives saying that.
And I think what you're seeing actually is the conservatives using this issue as a wedge issue, and knowing that their base, which is predominantly poor, white, uneducated people, they're going to elicit a reaction out of them. And so it does become this political tool that they use to further segregate the masses, blacks against whites. And then so these white people, had they seen the Super Bowl, they may not have had the initial reaction of being upset at what she did, but then they turn on the news and all of a sudden they're being told that they should be upset. And I agree with you. I don't think we should be dismissive, and I don't think we should make the mistake of categorizing white people under a blanket, because we know that even within white groups, with the Italians, the Irish, the Germans, there's discrimination within those groups. I mean, we talked about this lightly a few days ago, where like even as far back as maybe even 100 years ago, the Italians were still being lynched, and they were being treated like black people, no better than black people. So obviously they have their problems within their groups, and not all white people are the same. So I don't think that's not. I'm not trying to say that all poor white people have that reaction, but it is.
But you did ask a very interesting question, which was, why are white people upset or disturbed?
And I think you answered part of that question by saying that it's actually the conservatives that are using this as an issue to manipulate them, and that's very true. Now,
right. And also, I think what Dario was hinting to was actually what he stated was what has to do with what we're talking about, is that there is a privilege in play here, and as Hispanics or even as African Americans, we can go out and talk about racism, and not that we do it with joy, because we don't do it with joy, we do it with passion, but in many circumstances, some white conservatives cannot do that, because then they're looked upon as racist, and they may be racist, and that's the fine line. I'm not saying they are, but they may be, and that is a fine line.
But that's just a consequence of the last 400 years, and people are hypersensitive to white rule, and unfortunately, that's the. I think what we need is a more critical view, like we were talking about white people, and understanding that they're not all the same. They don't all come from the same groups. Some of them suffer discrimination as well. And I think instead of talking about the white people as a group, we can focus on individuals and say, okay, well, yeah, these certain individuals are obviously racist, but that doesn't mean that all the other ones are. But I get what you're saying. There's definitely hypersensitivity when it comes to these things. And so anything, the white man these days does not have the luxury of slipping up and it just being a slip up, because more than likely it'll be interpreted as racism. Whereas other people have a little bit more freedom when it comes to that. But hey, I think that's in part due to our history, and hopefully that changes over time.
But isn't that a problem when Beyonce goes on the Super Bowl stage and she makes a nod to the Black Panthers?
Well,
especially since what you said is so spot on, that simply because you're white, that doesn't mean that you should have any white guilt, as Mike alluded to. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest issues.
But why are you? Why do you keep thinking that being pro-black means the same as being anti-white? Why?
Because
Why can't you be?
the point that I wanted to make earlier, and I didn't finish it, is that you in this country, if you're white, you're taught uh, not to in any way, um, and I'm not white, by the way. I'm Mexican. I'm super brown, but
It's very
I'm pretty
important
sure.
that you say fucking Mexican.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they're brought up, especially the ones with I'm gonna say middle class with some sort of education, not necessarily the ones that are less educated, but they're brought up to be very mindful that they don't come across as uh, being condescending or being racist. And the point that I wanted to make earlier was that in this country you are not allowed. If you're a white person, you are not allowed to say, "I have pride in being white." You cannot say that. That automatically it is misconstrued as a racist attack. And why should that be?
I don't
You
know
know
if
that
that's true. And
that is
also,
true. That is true.
hold on, let me make a point really quick regarding what you said about the upbringing of white people. I don't know if I actually think, and obviously I can't prove whether you're wrong or right, but my interpretation of how or what I think about their upbringing is that they have the luxury of not having to worry about these type of problems, not having to worry about race. I don't even think they discuss those things. I think they learn later on in life what the boundaries are. I think they learn them in high school, in college. I think when they're growing up, when they're kids, they have the luxury to go to school and learn and be young people and pursue their goals and live their life to their potential without having to worry about these race issues like Hispanics and blacks.
It is a very good point, and I think you are correct in that when there's privilege, you don't have to worry. However, there are communities where it's predominantly white and very few minorities in those communities. So I see that you don't have to worry so much. But if you're living in a metropolis like Los Angeles or San Francisco or New York, um, and you're in high, you're seeking higher education or even high school, and your peers are of different color and different cultures, different attitudes, then then you're more aware of your limits. And I guess you do learn as you get older, or as
Yeah,
you learn.
you
But
learn the boundaries. And hey, what was your second point? I forgot it. After you talked about their upbringing, oh, that they don't get to be proud of their culture. I don't know if I don't know if I agree with that. I see signs of white people being proud of being European and being white all the time. It's not in your face. It's a little bit um, more subtle, but it's there. They're proud of their heritage. And why do you say that they can't? Obviously, they can't come out and say, I'm an ardent supporter of Andrew Jackson, who killed thousands of Native Americans and took their land. Yeah, they're not going to do that, but they're proud of their
No,
white heritage.
that's not the point that I wanted to make. I get the sensation that, and we've talked about this before. I get the sensation that black people and with good reason. I mean, they are because of the history. I mean that is an indictment of itself. But I get the sense that they're hypersensitive when it comes to race issues, and I didn't finish my point earlier about police brutality. If we're going to talk about what Beyonce did in the vein of it being a statement about what's going on in recent events with clashes with police and all the killings, um, they have the sensation that it's something that's only afflicting them. That is still a black and white issue, but the point that I'm trying to make is that it's a systemic issue. It's no longer a racial issue. It's a poverty issue. It's a opportunity issue, and I think that's why Bernie Sanders is resonating with a lot of people, because he knows he can see. I think he's older than us. He can see the bigger picture. He can see that that the system has run amok when it comes to governance, and that it's not looking out for those people who are the poorest. I guess they're on the margins, and that encompasses black people, that encompasses brown people, and that encompasses a lot of Native Americans and white people. I'm pretty sure a large majority of white people are disenfranchised at this point because of poor governance.
And
I mean, look at Flint. Look at what happened in Flint.
well, and look, and I agree with you on that. And the two things that I'll say about that is that one, it still does affect blacks disproportionately, but sure.
You know what? I don't think so.
I think it does, because all you have to do is look at the percentage. Obviously, if you just count the raw numbers, there's probably more white people that are poor that are affected by this. But we're talking about the percentage. The blacks are about 13% of the population. And if you look up the percentage of them that fall victim to police brutality or end up behind bars, it disproportionately affects blacks.
What are the numbers?
I don't have them, but I'm pretty sure that you guys can look them up and you will find them. And sorry, let me go back to another point, because I wanted to make 2 points regarding that. And before we kind of started talking about this other point, you don't know. You're making the assumption that when Beyonce went on the Super Bowl and she saluted the Black Panthers, you're making the assumption that she was only trying to speak up for black people. How do you know that she wasn't also speaking up? She was speaking up for police brutality, which, as you mentioned, affects everyone. So why are you making the assumption that she's just trying to represent blacks? You don't know that.
Why are you making the assumption that she's only representing everybody? I mean, it's the same.
No, because she spoke up against police brutality. She didn't get up there and say, I'm protesting this because black people are being killed. She went up there to protest police brutality.
You know what? I just want to double down on the point that there's a lot of white people, I'm sure, and I think it ties in with the popularity of Donald Trump. There's a lot of white people who feel disaffected, who feel like, and they did some surveys, and they actually said that some of these white people, they feel more discriminated against than black people. And I mean, you can make this shit up. I mean, if somebody's feeling like that, there's something going on psychologically. And I think that's one of the biggest issues I saw with Beyonce using such a huge platform to make the statement that not everybody is gonna respond positively in a positive way. Not everybody is gonna take it as a healing or like as an educational opportunity. Some people are just gonna feel like they're getting kicked. Even more so than maybe getting kicked while they're down or adding insult to injury.
Mm-hmm. Let me that's good. I think we'll wrap it up with that. But let me just we can probably talk about this in one of our next conversations, which is one of the primary reasons why these white people would feel like that may not necessarily be because of their experiences, but because of what they're being fed by these conservative news outlets. So we can talk about that next time. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, good point.